Democracy is very tough to manage, but it's the best form of government.
We must promote unity, stability, and economic justice for everyone.
The question of security is paramount in my mind because women are the highest victim of insecurity.
Our diversity is an asset if we know how to use it.
The business and exercise of conducting a probe exercise of agencies, institutions, and parastatals at the level of government to ascertain, verify, confirm, and readily take decisive actions to solve solutions requires strong political will and determination. Well, not only to set the record straight, but to entrench and execute justice. This aptly describes the presidency-initiated probe of the central bank and public call for more probes. So join us as we look at the dynamics, the politics, and intricacies of probe exercise in Nigeria on TV Nigeria at this moment. Join us. You're welcome back to the studio, and like we said earlier, a probe exercise is a solution-driven effort or attempt to actually correct the records and put certain things straight. So welcome to the Presidency in Focus on TV Nigeria, and to take a look at a couple of probe exercise which this current government has delved into and is also been convinced to look into. We have our guest on the program. Our guest is a political analyst, a motivational speaker, special consultant on governance and leadership. Is also a public relations expert, Mr. Israel Olusegun Aino. Mr. Aino, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me on the program, as usual.
Yes, we appreciate your presence. Now, the former central bank governor, and of course the former emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, is one individual that takes opportunity of forums for national discourse to raise fundamental issues, very thought-provoking issues. Just recently, Lamido Sanusi have talked about the current challenge with NNPC, and he made it clear at that forum that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should not take up the office of the Minister of Petroleum. What he should do is to appoint a highly professional individual to manage the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources.
Why is there no money coming in? Why is NNPC not able to bring in dollars? I'm sorry, this is the question that cost me my job. I will continue asking this question until NNPC is fixed or until I die. Where are the dollars? We need to shine light on NNPC. The finance minister cannot tell you because he doesn't have a metering system that reports to him. The finance minister cannot tell you that today, this is how many barrels of oil that we produce and exported. He can only rely on NNPC telling him. Those barrels are revenue. They belong to finance. We've been talking about this for 10 years. We need a metering system. The finance ministry needs to know how much oil we are producing every day, how much oil we are selling, and where the money is going. Because if you don't fix the leakages in that system, if you don't fix the revenue, the dollar revenue issue, you will never fix the exchange rate problem. Oil is not going to grow our GDP. I've always said that. Oil, I mean, if you took out all the oil in Nigeria today and sold it, it would raise our per capita income to maybe $4,000. We won't even be a middle income country. Oil will never make us rich, but it is working capital. It is working capital. It is a lubricant for our import dependent economy. And we cannot afford to continue producing the oil and not seeing the revenue. We are no longer paying subsidies. So where are the dollars? Before it was under recovery. Now we don't have under recovery. Where is the money? Let me advise that this idea of the president being petroleum minister is not a good idea. The last president was minister of petroleum for 8 years. When I was governor of Central Bank, we had a petroleum minister. So when I talked about NNPC, I could attack Dizani. Now nobody can talk about petroleum because 8 years, if you talk, you're attacking the president. We need that buffer. Somebody has to be there. So a minister has to be there who is held accountable by Nigerians. I say this because if we're talking about banking, if we're talking about the banking system, if we're talking about the economy, we've got to look at all these linkages.
This was the same man who was booted out of the CBN when he questioned the very controversial $20 billion money missing from the central bank account. So, Mr. Shegun, Mr. Sanusi has called on the president to throw all his weight to probe the NNPCL. What's your take on it?
I think it's a no-brainer. It's not even something the president should be told to do. I think it's something that is very clear to everybody. In fact, the NNPC probe should even have come even before the CBN thing. That, you know, there are more things to probe, more matters to probe in the NNPC, even more than the CBN. And you know, former Emir Sanusi Lamido Sanusi is not the only one shouting about this. So many other people are saying it, and that's why even the reappointment of Mele Kyari is a shock and a confusion to a lot of people. But well, for those who believe that the president and the presidency, they know what they are doing, well, we want to believe that it must be that the president is up to something. He has some, aces up his sleeves, because if it's not that, then it can only mean that, unfortunately, maybe he himself also lack the political will to, because like I told you in some of our previous programs, there are principalities, there are cabals in that NNPC, that if God doesn't help you with boldness, and if you don't have a clean slate, if you have skeletons in your cupboard too, they are not the kind of people you can face and, and tackle. So it's a must for any serious government to probe the NNPC, because there are a lot of things happening in that place. For example, look at a barrel goes for like $86 now. We are pushing out about 1.4 million barrels a day. And everything, all the transactions are in dollars. But we are suffering shortage of dollars. Where are all the dollars going to? If all the transactions are in dollars, why is the NNPC not remitting all the profits in dollars? That's even if they are remitting anything at all. Then even if they are not remitting in dollars, if they are remitting wrongly in naira, are they even remitting the correct rates? So those are some of the issues. And this has been going on for over a decade now. You know what it means to do business in dollars. You have dollars, but you refuse to remit the dollars. You just maybe remit some naira, maybe even based on the privileged official, rates. Then it means that the dollar is going to some other places, maybe the black market, where they make a lot of, going to all kinds of places, and that's even wrong. Apart from so many other issues about the 11 trillion they've spent in the last 8 years to, where are all these monies? The refineries they claim to be maintaining, all the staff, what are they doing there? Moribund refineries are not working. So there are a lot of impunity and corruption going on in the NNPC that the president needs to look into if serious about probing.
When you want to kick off a probe exercise, of course you must have done some level of investigations and all that. Now, how soon would you want the president? Because it was more like a serious call by Sanusi to the president Now, of course, the issue of the office of the Minister of Petroleum Resources, because the president has not actually said he is the minister, but we found this happening in Buhari and Obasanjo's regime. Okay, so what would you want the president to do? A clear-cut information on this, on the office of the minister.
It's constitutionally wrong. It contravenes, I think, section 147 of the Constitution. And you see, that's very, very wrong. And not just wrong, it makes it very difficult for you to be able to hold the NNPC accountable. You know, because in Nigeria, where the president is almost like unquestionable, can you call the president to the National Assembly to come and ask to answer questions? That's the problem. That's why the president needs to, number one, appoint a professional who knows what this thing is all about. Thank God he just appointed as chairman of the board a well-known, well-tested and trusted oil guru, Chief Pius Akinyelure. But we are talking about a minister for petroleum, a professional that can be called to question by the necessary authorities, you know, who are in charge of oversight functions. You know, you can't question the president like that. The president being the minister for petroleum makes it difficult for a lot of things to be properly done. That's the problem. So the president needs to drop that idea. That was what Obasanjo did. That was what Buhari did. And it's unconstitutional. It's even a sign of impunity. Because in some countries that cannot happen. It can't happen. But we've been doing it in Nigeria, and then we take a lot of things for granted. For you to become a minister, you must go and face the National Assembly, be questioned and screened. You can't become a minister except you go through the National Assembly. But we've been having ministers who the National Assembly, they don't even have the guts to call to come and face them.
Mr. Let's look at the $11 trillion which was spent in 8 years under former President Muhammadu Buhari to import fuel. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has called on the president to probe this expenditure. This he made during the book presentation in Abuja. So, should former President Muhammadu Buhari be called to provide answers?
Definitely. But unfortunately in Nigeria, that has never happened before. You know, a former president being called to question, to come and answer. It has never. That's why, maybe we'll get there later. That's why I find something currently brewing too. You know, towards the direction of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. That's why I find it very interesting, because he is even the one volunteering now to come forward by himself to answer certain questions. If there is any inquiry, any panel, or, based on some other things that happened during his own time too, and one of his ministers, $6 billion, just thrown away like that. A lot of people even feel this OCBN probe, Emefiele and all that it's somehow absurd to do something like that without calling the former president Muhammadu Buhari to come forward and answer certain questions, because nothing Emefiele did was done without the permission or the knowledge. Some people will tell you it can only happen in Africa or in Nigeria. Over a decade, nothing.
So should the president also probe funds that was used to import fuel?
Definitely. A lot of corruption, a lot of fraud happened. Even some of the monies that were collected, they were collected without doing nothing. They will give you the impression, maybe there are ships on the ice, and they were just all kinds of things, crazy, very absurd things were going on. Kyari must step aside. I'm not necessarily saying they should do with him what they did with Emefiele, arresting him but let him step aside. I think if they are serious about probing and getting into, they can do this thing. It's not just our people that are involved in this whole NNPC wahala. Some outsiders, some foreign principalities are also involved. In fact, some people have been saying that the World Bank, all this IMF, their main agenda is to keep Nigeria and other African countries down, to make sure economically we don't come up, so that we don't start challenging them, because they know we have the potential, the resources to come up and start challenging them, and they don't want that. That's why they will give you certain advices that will just mess up your economy. They will give you loans that, in fact, in the next 10 years, you will be paying the interest. The main loan is still there. And, so we need to, the president needs to really, look at the NNPC. In fact, it's not an option. Those funds must be probed.
So does this justify the removal of the fuel subsidy by the president?
Yeah, it justifies. See, even a layman on the streets, just with a little understanding of what the fuel subsidy was all about, would support the removal of the fuel subsidy. The fear was when you remove it, I hope it will not be a case of what the Yoruba has called olegbe, olegba. So the fear was, I hope they won't remove it only for some other people to start stealing it from, through another channel. And that takes me to another, report that came out yesterday from the World Bank. Because the World Bank was telling us that our current fuel price, it's not cost reflective. That instead of this 650 or so, it should be at least 750. That it's like the presidency or the government is still paying fuel subsidy to an extent.
Knowing who the president is as an accountant, what are your expectations from the president with the funds? Because recently, of course, the president have said a lot of funds is coming in based on the removal of the subsidy. So what very critical areas would you expect the president to channel these funds being generated as a result of the removal of the fuel subsidy?
Well, definitely essential areas like health, education, food, and then maybe security. Because if there is no security, there can't be any food. The farmers can't go to the farm. We hear about a lot of things happening in the north where even the farmers will be paying certain fees to terrorists before they can be allowed to go to their farm. That's very unfortunate. Put certain things in place. Professor Wole Soyinka said there was a particular day he was, I think, at Heathrow Airport. And the flight was delayed for some time. So he felt like just walking around and then he saw a cleaner at Heathrow Airport. And that cleaner looked like, something told him this person is a Nigerian. And he started, he got into a conversation with the person and discovered that the person was even Yoruba, but the person was sweeping, a cleaner. After a while, after the interview, he discovered the person had a PhD. A PhD? So he was like, what's the problem? A PhD? You are sweeping? But the person, he was like talking to the person that, please come back home. You can be a lecturer in some of our universities. And the person told him that, sir, I prefer this cleaning job. I do like 3-4 jobs in a day. And what I make, when I compare it to what a lecturer in Nigeria makes, in fact, a lecturer's salary is what we use to drink pepper soup and that kind of a thing. So that's why the president should go beyond just appealing to our professionals. Somebody said out of 5 top professionals abroad, whether in at least 2-3 Nigerians will be amongst. That's how good our people are. So we have the materials, but unfortunately they are helping to develop other countries.
Very recently, the news report is that Dangote refinery has, of course, taken delivery of crude in order for it to begin to refine. This is good news to a large extent, but Nigerians are expecting that by the time the Dangote refinery is beginning to chunk out refined products and the other modular refineries, the price of fuel is going to come down because the major challenge here has been fuel. So, but how do you see the development? Because this is encouraging.
It should be good news. But unfortunately, Dangote starting production may not necessarily affect the price of fuel in Nigeria. And that, I don't know why it should be like that. If Dangote, a local person, is refining fuel, I think it should affect the price of fuel. But they said some of these things are also done in dollars, even though it's operating in Nigeria. If it will affect it at all, it will just be by a minute. The conditions are so discouraging and all that. So I don't really, it's like some people are hell-bent on making sure they suffocate and they choke up local production so that they can always take this thing outside and bring it back fraudulently in dollar.
What would be your recommendation, suggestion to the president on this matter?
Well, the president should look at the NNPC very well, as we have been saying. Then encourage all these modular, refineries. Let them start production. If they start production, at least in their various local areas of, it will ease all this fuel price thing and, that kind of a thing. People will get, they should encourage them, make the crude available to them.
You're still watching the Presidency in Focus on TV Nigeria. And we'll be looking at a recent call for more probes into very critical sectors of the economy. We'll be right back. Okay, you're welcome back. It's still the Presidency in Focus on TV Nigeria. Still taking a look at probe matters in Nigeria. Now, There is a latest development. Managing Director of NNPCL, Kyari has said that fuel importation will end 2024. He assured Nigerians as Warri Kaduna refinery is set to kickstart operation. Mr. Shegun, this is good news.
Very good news. If from next year, we don't even have any business importing. I mean, how can you have something in your compound, then you take it to another man's place? The man will help you to put it in shape, then sell it back to you. And that's where the fraud comes in. Once our refineries are working, we won't have any business, importing and suffering from all this fuel scarcity or high cost of, fuel. So this will be, in fact, a very big Happy New Year gift. If it's true, Nigerians will be very, very happy and better off.
Kyari also projected that the national oil firm will grow its revenue to 4.5 trillion naira at the end of 2023, adding that the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery company under NNPCL's management will be completed by December this year. This tends to also give us a deep insight on what the president is actually trying to do.
Well, maybe the president is actually, because the fear of people is, okay, all these monies, we hope they are not being stolen and siphoned, because that will be the pain. At least if I'm going to suffer pain, let me know there will be gain, for my pain. But if I'm just suffering and then at the end of the day there is no gain, that will be the real pain. I think the solution to our fuel situation is for our refineries to start working again.
House of Representatives also told the CEO of NNPCL, Kyari, that look, why don't we privatize these refineries?
Well, some have suggested that. Even so many foreign interests. I think part of the Saudi Arabia trip too, they discussed certain possibilities towards that direction. If that will be the solution, fine. Like I've always said, I believe this president, he has what it takes to turn things around. Because it's not easy in Nigeria. We know the kind of country, but so many people came in with they wanted to really do something, but somewhere along the line, even before they knew it, they were derailed.
Well, still talking about probe matters, there is also a very critical sector in the country. We're talking about the power sector, which is also a very strong pillar that will determine developmental growth for Nigeria. Mr. Shegun, the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, and the former minister for power, Chief Oluwa Agunloye, have also been in the news. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo has said that he is ready to testify. But now, the issue is this. The power sector, over the years, even under Jonathan Yaradua, the country has spent billions of dollars from one project to the other, all in the bid to try to improve power. The bottom line is we're talking probe here. Should President Bola Ahmed Tinubu probe the power sector?
Apart from the NNPC, the CBN, in fact, if there is any other sector that should be probed in this country, back to like the last 3 regimes, it's the power sector. Like you said, President Olusegun Obasanjo spent about $16 billion on that sector, and still up till today. The time of President Olusegun Obasanjo, I think in 2003, something happened. There was a contract that was entered into by one of his ministers. His minister for power and steel at that time, Oluwa Agunloye, signed a $6 billion contract with a foreign power generating company called Sunrise. They call it the Mambila Power Project contract. They call it BOT. Build, operate for some time, and transfer. How and why is this coming up now? Like I said, it's not the current presidency that is probing. Do you know that the foreign consultants, they've taken Nigeria to court, just like the P&ID stuff. That Nigeria signed a $6 billion contract with them, but at some point they violated the terms and conditions of that kind of it, and they are asking for $2.3 billion in settlements. And the matter is in France, is in a court in France. So they called upon the presidency that, what is happening? This case is there, or bring money, and they are like, what's the meaning of all this? We don't know anything about this, and that's how the probe started. In fact, the Attorney General of the Federation, Fagbemi, has written to the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, to find out some things. And interestingly, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has even volunteered that even he himself has accused Oluwa Agunloye before now. even after they left the presidency, that you are a thief. In fact, the former president went as far as saying that during his time, no minister was allowed to sign anything above 25 million naira. So Oluwagunloye couldn't have entered into such a contractual agreement with his support. So whether the President Tinubu likes it or not, he doesn't have a choice. It's not about, he must. Because we must fight back. We can't just sit and where are we going to get $2.3 billion to pay for a scam of a contract that we never authorized?
So it's obvious that this president of the government currently has actually, how would I put it, inherited a lot of liabilities.
Yeah, and they didn't even have to investigate and dig this one up. This one came up by itself because somebody sued us. And so, and thank God, I like the fact that the former president Olusegun Obasanjo has volunteered to. In fact, I think that will set a very good precedent. Maybe if he comes forward, then maybe there should be no big deal about calling former presidents to come and answer questions. Because it's as if in this country, it's like a taboo, an abomination. For you to summon, I remember the Okuta panel that President Obasanjo set up when he came in. They asked the former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida, to come. He never came, and nothing happened. Look at what they are doing to Donald Trump in the US. They are jailing former presidents in France. If you can do the crime, you do the time. But in Nigeria, former presidents are untouchable, and that's very unfortunate.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Segun Aino, for coming on the program.
Thank you very
what's
much.
Your final submission? Is one thing to probe, is another to implement the report. But what's your advice to the president for future probes and the reports of the current one?
There is no way you probe certain things in this country without people answering. In fact, some of us, we already know the kind of people that should answer. At times, some of these probes, for some of us, is a waste of money, time and energy. The things are already clear. But maybe to follow the constitutional distance so that you won't just be picking people up and, So, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is make sure the reports are used. So that we don't even see, it's better you don't start the probe at all. Because you'll be wasting a lot of taxpayers' money. They spend billions at times on some of these probes. Then you now do it at the end of the day.
But using the CBN probe as an example, that should serve as a template that the presidency will allow the same vigor to be applied for other probe exercises.
Well, hopefully so. Because when you catch a thief or you catch somebody for wrongdoing, give the appropriate sanctions. Because even these little children coming up, if they know they can steal $1 billion, then return back like 200 million at the end of the day, then go and enjoy the remaining. Why won't people steal? My advice to the president, please, sir, go the whole log. And then when you are done, make sure you act upon the reports and act upon it in a way that Nigerians can see very clearly. Let them face the consequences.
Mr. Segun Israel Aino, a motivational speaker, special consultant on governance and leadership, and of course, a political analyst. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Well, it's very obvious from the analysis of this issue today that the set objective of any probe exercise is to seek solutions to myriad of challenges, issues, and of course, critical developments in the country. Clearly, the success of every probe is the political will to execute the outcomes. You can join the conversation. Drop your views by watching and subscribing to our YouTube channel, TV Nigeria 808, our web TV, www.tvnigeria.ng, Facebook and Twitter at TV Nigeria, and Instagram at TV Nigeria 1. The Presidency in Focus will come your way again on TV Nigeria next week. Thanks for watching.